Good morning, Life Point boys and girls. This is Granny Miriam here, right from Jesus' time. That's when I actually lived, over 2,000 years ago. Do I look it? As usual, we don't want to go there. What we want to talk about today was one of the greatest miracles Jesus ever did. Now, we have been talking about stories that Jesus told. Do you remember the name for those? Did all of you say parable? Well, you were right if you said that. If you didn't say that, then you need to learn that the stories that Jesus told that had a meaning straight from God, they were called parables. And you remember last week, we talked about the parable of the hidden treasure. A treasure hidden in a field. And I noticed that most of you didn't pick up your treasure bags from the church. So if you hadn't picked those up yet, you need to do it. I hope it didn't get rained on last night. The other parable that we told just recently was about the soils, about how a sower or a planter went out and he planted seeds, and some of it fell on hard ground. And that stood for people that just don't listen to Jesus' words at all. And the others fell on rocky ground. That stood for people that listen to it and say, oh yeah, I want to be a Christian. I received this word from God. I want to be his person. But pretty soon, they just fall away. They forget all about it. And then we talked about the thorny soil. That stands for people that they accept Jesus. They say, yes, Lord, I'm a Christian. I'm going to follow you. But then troubles come and they get all stressed out. And they go back to doing whatever they used to do when they were stressed out, which is get angry or mad or scared or do drugs maybe. That happens too. Terrible things. And they forget all about Jesus. But remember, the fourth soil was good, loose soil. And when the seeds fell into that soil just accepted that seed, which is the Word of God, and let it grow and grow and grow and change their lives completely. And then they, in turn, do all kinds of good things for the Lord. They work for him. Now, that's an example of parables, a story Jesus told. Today, we're going to talk about something that Jesus did. And let me tell you, this was one big attention getter, because this miracle involved food. Yeah. I mean, just about anybody that you talk to back in my day would put this in the top 5 Jesus miracles. Maybe in the top 3 Jesus miracles. Yeah, because this was about something that everybody was really concerned about in my time. Getting enough to eat. I mean, today you get hungry, what do? You tell your mom, let's run down to Mickey D's. I need some chicken McNuggets. And if she's in the mood, she'll run right down there and get them for you. Or she'll take you. Or if you have some good snacks at home, she'll just let you eat those. It's not a big deal, right? When supper time comes, there's supper on the table. Back then, getting food, I'm talking about back in my day, in Jesus' day, it was a big deal. If you lived out in the country, you had to grow your own food. And that was a pretty big process. You had to plant it, you had to take care of it, you had to make sure it got enough water, you had to make sure it grew, you had to harvest it, then you had to process it so you could use it for food, then you had to cook it, and then finally you got to eat it. So really, most of your time was taken up getting enough food for yourself and your family. Well, suppose you lived in town, you didn't live on a farm. You could go to the market, just like today, and buy food. But most people found out that most of their income, most of what they made, had to go for really basic stuff, like having a roof over your head and getting food into your tummy. So they had to work really, really, really hard, long hours, day after day after day, with just one day off usually, to get enough food to feed themselves and their families. So getting food and staying alive, that was really basic and really important, and it really took up a lot of your time. Well, in this miracle, Jesus just took care of the hunger problem, boom, all at once, just like that. Just thinking about this makes me feel a little hungry. my friend, she packed this snack for me. And I know it's really wrong to eat in front of people. So maybe I should share this snack with you. So let me see what I got here. Well, I got some crackers. Looks like 4 little crackers. And I got some peanut butter. Crunchy. Oh, you're okay with crunchy. So I'll just divide this up between you and me, and we'll all have something to eat. But you know, there's about 8 of us. So that would mean I have to take each one of these crackers and divide it in half. And I could put one big dab of peanut butter on it. But that would mean each one of us got 1 bite. I don't know. Getting 1 bite just might make me more hungry. You know what I mean? So it's going to be kind of hard for me to share my food. So I guess I'll just have to put it up and not eat it. Well, in this parable, Jesus had thousands of hungry people. We don't know exactly how many. But Jesus had gone to the other side of the lake from where he'd been preaching and doing miracles. He went to the other side so that he and his 12 disciples, his 12 followers, could be a little alone and have a little rest time. But guess what happened? The people who'd been listening to him and been coming to him to be healed on the other side of the lake got in boats or walked around, and they followed him. And as soon as he got over there and had spent just a few minutes with his disciples, he started people coming his way in droves. Well, we don't know exactly how many there were, but we know that there were 5,000 men, just 5,000 men. So once you count the women and children, there could have been 10,000 or maybe 15,000. A lot of people. And they stayed with Jesus all day. Some of them wanted Jesus to heal them. Some of them just wanted to hear him speak. So he taught them, he healed them, and it started to get close to dark time. And his disciples came to him and said, "You know, Lord, this is an empty place. There's no people living around here. And all these people have been with you all day long. They're getting really hungry. They're going to need something to eat. So why don't you tell them that it's time for them to go? And they can go into the towns around here and find them something to eat." And Jesus said, "Well, why don't you feed them?" And the disciples went, "Ooh," or something like that. "Us feed them? There's thousands of people here." If we took half of our salary for a whole year, half of what we get paid for the whole year, and we went into the towns and we bought food, we still couldn't buy enough for these people. And Jesus said, "Well, what do you have?" And they said, "Well, there is a little boy here. He has five little loaves of bread, and he has 2 little fish." But, 5 little loaves of bread and 2 little fish, that's not going to feed thousands and thousands of people, Lord. Let's get real here. And Jesus said, "Well, give it to me." So the little boy gave him his lunch, and they brought it to Jesus. And Jesus prayed over it. We don't know exactly what he said, but he prayed over this food. And then he divided up the food and he handed it to the 12 disciples, so each one had a little bitty bit. And he said, "Okay, pass this out among the people." So they passed it out, and 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 they passed it out. And there was more and more and more and more and more of this bread, and more and more and more of this little fish. And it fed everybody there, thousands and thousands of people. Maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 15,000. And everybody had food left over. So the disciples each took a great big basket, and they went all around and they gathered up everything that was left. Well, this is pretty amazing, huh? Well, the people thought it was astounding. In fact, after they got through eating, they wanted to make Jesus king, because they were thinking to themselves, if we make this guy king, We're never going to be hungry again. We're going to have all the food we want forever. We just need to make him king right now. And you know what he said? He said, okay, guys, it's time for all of you to go home. He dismissed them all and made them all go away, so they couldn't make him king. But we know why they wanted to make him king, because, like I said, providing food for yourself was a really hard thing back then. And they saw a way to get out of all that. But let's look at one other thing. It was real interesting how Jesus did this. He could have done it a lot of different ways. He could have said, Lord, send some food down from heaven. And you know what would have happened? Food would have just started floating down from heaven. Woo, down to the ground. And people could have just caught it and eat it. Well, that would be spectacular, wouldn't it? Or he could have said, Lord, bring food up from the ground. And people would have looked down at their feet, and all of a sudden, food would have been appearing up from, because Jesus could do any of that. He could do all that. But instead, he let a little boy give his lunch. A little boy just like you. A kid just like you. He took a little boy's lunch. And so he used what the little boy gave him to feed everybody. And then he took the disciples, the 12 guys, and he used their hands and legs to feed everybody. This is really cool because Jesus can do anything, but the way he works is he uses us. He takes whatever we give him and he makes it work in a big, big, big way. So he takes anyone who has that good soil that can take in what he says, and he asks that person, give me what you got. And then when we give him what we got, even if it doesn't amount to anything, whatever it is, and he can use that to do great things all over the world. Just like he took a little tiny lunch, because those loaves of bread were just, they were just little. And those fish, they were probably just like crappie today, just a little fish. And by the time you got rid of the bones, you probably didn't have a whole lot. And he fed thousands of people with it. So, doesn't matter how much talent you have, doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how rich you are, doesn't matter how athletic you are, if you give Jesus whatever you got, then he can do something great with it. Okay, now I want you to watch the video about this. There's also going to be a coloring page that you can color so you can remember this lesson. And remember, give Jesus whatever you got and watch what he can do with it. This is Granny Miriam signing off for this week. Bye-bye.